Welcome to this episode of Hustle and Pro. I'm your host, Kelly Walker. Today we are at episode 158. I can't wait to jump in. I'm actually really excited to talk to our guest today. As you can see, we're in a control room where our guest does his work from. So I'm excited to talk about what that means and who we're talking to. He is the voice behind the beard, the voice of Sports City USA, Chris Buccambuso. Welcome, Chris.
I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for joining me. I know this is not your normal way to be on the mic, so...
No, I'm not used to being seen.
I know, right? So now we can see you. I just wanted to sort of talk to you about how interesting I think your job is. So for our audience, Chris is the public address, or I don't know, PA announcer. I probably am saying that wrong, but PA for a lot of things we're going to talk about. But what I know him from is FC Dallas. We happen to be at the ballpark, so he also works for the RoughRiders. So we're going to talk about all that. But your job is a public address announcer.
I'm a stadium screamer.
A stadium screamer. I like that. Cool. I have so many things I want to ask you, but I guess let's quickly. I just want to ask what does that actually mean? What are your responsibilities?
I'm here to convey messages that the teams want out to the folks who are present in the stadium. So selling the soap is a lot of it. Things that they have going on, sponsorships is the common stuff prior to the game, in game, maybe at halftime. Starting lineups, national anthem, things of that nature.
I feel like you control or you guide us as fans through the experience of that game. From the pregame and the hearing the announce or the players' names and the anthem, all those things, you're like what we hear as the organization behind the flow of our experience.
That and I'm part of what I'm tasked to do is to give the amount of enthusiasm and or weight to what needs to be said.
Yeah.
For instance, it's really weird to go from a starting lineup where you're seeing stars, you're screaming so hard, to then stopping and then moving to a moment of silence where you're trying to give gravity to the memory of someone who was important to the team.
Yeah.
Or some important
or honor
to the sport.
A military
exactly
honoree for that game. Yeah, the weight does shift really fast
right.
at the beginning of a lot of these, and that sometimes is like a first impression too, where they're here the first 10 minutes of somebody maybe in a stadium is important for how they're going to feel the rest of the night. So I never thought about that. So I mentioned you're most known around here, because I know you as FC Dallas. So, I mean, do you have any idea that people like me, fans with families, that your voice is in a lot of our memories and our fun, family moments? Does that sink in with you?
It does. And as a matter of fact, I have a story that was given to me at the beginning of the start of last high school football season when I was over at the Star.
Okay.
Where when I came in to do the first game, one of the producers there said, "Chris, we've got a story for you. We want to tell you something that was going on." Because over at the Star, they do a lot of the high school graduations around here.
Yep.
So one of the valedictorians was giving her speech, and towards the end of it, she was saying that how much her high school experience meant to her, and one of her favorite memories was being at the Star and hearing one of the things that they do over there between the first and second quarters is something called the Whataburger dot race.
Yeah.
Or the dip and dash. And she said that was her favorite experience, and to think that, oh my God, something that I've done has a milestone experience for somebody.
Stays with you.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. We have family jokes, not about you, but they're in your voice because, this is so random. But it's not part of your script right now, but it's previous years of FC Dallas scripts is announcing players and announcing team doctor.
Oh yeah, Dr. Jim Walter.
And the way you do that, it cracked us up. We giggle every time. And when we're at other sporting events or we hear somebody with a similar name like that, it just is a funny bit that one of us will ramble off in our family in your voice. So I just love that, I don't know, I'd love to meet you now because I haven't met you until today. And so you said, why do you want to talk to me? I'm like, because whether you know it or not, your job sticks with us and impacts us. And we think it's really fascinating. And I'm sitting here thinking, hearing you pronounce names and things, and just like have a million things going on my mind, like, how do you know all that? So I have all those questions too, but I guess going backwards a step, like, were you a kid like my kid who's on the mic trying to be a broadcaster and all this in sports, or how did this come to be that's part of what you do?
I came at this from a theater background, believe it or not.
Okay.
And for the longest time, from high school through college, through my young adult years, I was always involved in community theater strictly as a hobby. I was never a working actor or anything like that. But I used to like to get involved with doing a play every now and then, and it was just a lot of fun. It's where I found a lot of personal satisfaction, if you will.
Was sports on your radar?
I was involved a little in sports, and I'm as much of a sports fan as anyone. Mm-hmm. I love baseball. I've always loved baseball. I've always enjoyed football. Soccer came late to me. As a matter of fact, when I first was asked to fill in at FC Dallas, I knew little or nothing of the sport.
Okay.
But soccer is not hard from a public address announcer perspective, because everything I do is scripted.
Yeah, you're not calling
exactly.
the game. You have a script to go off of. Going back to the beginning of what you owe the team, the outcomes you're trying to deliver aren't really variable. Once you have that written out, it's pretty much you're sticking with it, whether the sport, like whatever happens in game or not, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you talk about theater. I mean, I'm looking at kind of this resume, and I don't know when all this happened, but if this is your former life or current, but you've been in like all of these, every big, show that you think of, like It's a Wonderful Life, and let's see, Miracle on 34th Street, The Tempest, Taming of the Shrew, Midsummer Night's Dream, Foreigner, let's see, Our Town, Fiddler on the Roof, all those kinds of things. Like the big things that you think of. Were those all childhood things?
No, the majority of them, probably about half of them, were high school.
Okay.
Probably about the last 4 or 5 that you'd named off were with Frisco Community Theater. And part of why I'm doing what I'm doing now is because of It's a Wonderful Life. And at the time I had 2 small children at home, between 2 and 5 roughly.
Okay.
And if you have any experience with theater, you know that a good production like that you'll have the auditions in August, and then between rehearsals and production you're going on through December. Mm-hmm. And so with 2 small children at home, leaving the house was tough, because they're looking at you going, "Daddy, why are you leaving again?" And I'm gone every night.
Yeah.
and whatnot. And the play ended 3 days before Christmas, so it almost contributed nothing to that holiday. My wife, God bless her, I love her to death, suggested that I should probably find something a little bit different to scratch that creative itch.
Yeah.
And shortly thereafter, Centennial High School opened, and they came into a business I was working at the time, asking for sponsorships for their inaugural season.
Okay.
And I said I would ask the owners of the business, and asked if they had an announcer, and they said they were just going to tap one of the parents to do it. And I said I'd love to.
That's your donation.
Exactly.
Or your contribution to that school. That's cool.
And kind of one thing led to another. The parents for baseball, a lot of them also did football, wanted me to do football.
It really is like a trickle thing, right? You just get a foot in the door or get used to that. And then, especially in like this town and in sports, you know that person, you add that, then you know that person, and you get enveloped into this system of like, all of a sudden you're doing PA for everybody. I mean, so you mentioned Frisco ISD Athletics, University, UTA, UNT, SMU, TCU, the Frisco Bowl. I mean, all kinds of stuff besides just the big FC Dallas, which is what I most and first think of you of. But that's a lot. So my question about that stuff is like, do you have to be you might have already answered this, but I'm wondering how prepared you have to be if you get called in to do SMU or this or that. Is the prep as simple as pronunciations and getting scripts ready, or do you have to go do research to jump into these?
Where I feel most comfortable, especially, so for instance, UTA, I had hardly done any basketball whatsoever. So little to no knowledge of the sport, how to call it, anything like that. What I'd asked to do was, for the person who I was going to be filling in for, I went down and sat with him, got a feel for the game, got a feel for what the script was. And what I'm so grateful to UTA for is they allowed me to learn on the job. They paid me to learn, if you will.
That's great.
And were very gracious in allowing me to make mistakes and things of that nature.
That's the way it should be, because it's not only better for you, but it's a better experience for their end user, their customer, or their attendee, fan, whatever, when you have the comfort of seeing it and being, watching a real live run through of it before you jump out there. And because, if you're backing up, they want the continuity of the feel of like how this all is supposed to be, so that it's not an abrupt change if you're backing somebody up one day.
I
right?
will share one experience with you though. The first time I ever got to fill in doing an FC Dallas game, I was lucky in that when I was doing high school football, when I first started doing high school football, I was doing it at Pizza Hut Park, which is now Toyota Stadium, where FC Dallas plays.
Yep.
So as I'm doing a game there, the gentleman at the time who was in charge, his name's Mike Cruz, asked me if I'd like to fill in and do a game for them, and it was the game where Beckham was supposed to be there but didn't make it.
Yep.
So I basically went from doing high school football where there was 1,000 or 2 people there in the building to a sold out MLS game.
Of people thinking they're coming for a certain thing.
And I'd never done soccer before.
Oh gosh, yeah. That's a big one to start on.
Yeah. So they told me on a Wednesday that I was going to be doing a Saturday game. I don't think I slept a wink those 3 days.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, I definitely want to hear, I have some follow-ups to that. I want to hear more about that. We are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Chris Buccambuso to hear more about his PA with FC Dallas. Player to Player matches elite high school athletes with younger, aspiring athletes through 1-hour private lessons, semi-private lessons, and camps and clinics. Learn more at playertoplayer.com. That's player, 2, player.com. We're back to Hustle and Pro with our guest, Chris Buccambuso. So we were talking a little about FC Dallas, and I want to drill down into some questions I have, specifically about things that happen like yesterday. A new player comes, big announcement, we get a new player, everybody's excited. I mean, I don't know exactly when the first time you have to say his name is, but do you immediately, if you don't know him already, maybe you're not a big fan, right? Do you immediately, go find his pronunciation, start practicing? Or,
I'll look it up, but to the extent it's how hard it is, for instance, this one, Leggett, is, I've seen him play before, so I've called him on opposite teams.
Okay.
But the one that tripped me up the hardest was the one that came in a year or 2 ago, Salbots Shun.
Yes.
Yeah. So that one caused me some heartache.
You have to say it right. People like me in the seats in the stands just get to fake it and pretend, make it up whatever we want the first name to be, and just say Sean. We just say, we'll name him whatever we think we can get out of there. But I was curious about some of the tougher names for you, because I've had, I think 10 FC Dallas players on this show before, and some of them are easy. It's easy to talk to Hollingshead or Paxton, but Nkosi had to, did I get it right? He had to teach me how. Yeah. Nkosi had to teach me how, and Edwin Cerrillo had to teach me how, and I still say it a horrible, wrong.
Cerrillo.
Yeah, right. But there are some tricky ones. Yeah. So besides, okay, say Sean's name right again.
Salbots Shun.
He's from Hungary? Is this right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. I know he plays on another national team. I think it's Hungarian. Are there any other names that you either love saying because they're just really fun to say, or that you have to
My favorite ever was when I first started doing FC Dallas games was Ugo Ehemalu.
Oh, I don't know that name.
Oh, he was
Ugo Ehemalu?
Ugo Ehemalu.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a left back, I want to say right now. Ima Tuamasi.
Yeah.
I always say his name wrong. And I saw him walking, my son saw him walking the other day into the mall, and we were leaving. And Jack was like, Mom, that's Ima. And I said it out loud, and I said it wrong, and he was like, Mom, don't say it wrong if you're gonna wave at him or whatever. It was just funny and embarrassing.
Ima is also one name I'll never forget, just because the first time I believe I ever said it, or first time I ever introduced him, I did call him Emma. And one of my boss's boss there put his hands on my shoulder and said, it's Ima. And so That's one thing that will make it stick in your head.
Whenever you're corrected?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. And there's so many languages. Do you have to work at that?
Well, 12 years experience now with FC Dallas has given me some of that experience.
Yeah.
But I will tell you the most difficult lineup that I have ever had to do, and I worked on the roster for at least 2 full weeks, was when the U.S. women played Russia.
Oh, yeah.
And fortunately,
where was that?
That was at Toyota.
Okay.
That was probably at least 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, that's got to be some different dialect to say there. Yeah.
Fortunately, one of the producers at FC Dallas has his wife is Russian, and so she recorded the roster for me. And so I went turkey hunting that week, and I just basically had an earbud in my ear and just listened to the roster over and over and over again.
That's great.
And then kind of as I had time, I'd write it down phonetically and things of that nature.
It's crazy though, because you have one shot at the beginning when you're doing lineup. Like that's it, right? You don't get to do what I do and correct it or edit it out. Like it's live and it's loud, right? Everybody's on it, but most of us don't know.
And that's sort of where I think a theater background comes in handy, is because it's sort of the same way. You are off stage and then you step on stage and you've got to be right.
Yeah, and like confident, right?
Yeah.
So 12 years with FC Dallas or
this is my 12th season.
12th season. So
and then prior to that I filled in for 3.
Okay. 12 years like with you at the helm there as PA. So what's the evolution of that look like? I mean, your comfort levels obviously I'm guessing it is a completely different now. You probably go in there with ease and no nerves anymore, or?
There's always nerves. From the moment where I get there and I start looking through the script that we have to do, you go through it, make sure that the teams are right, dates are right for certain reads, things of that nature. But from that moment, you're preparing yourself. But I'm always a bit nervous until I get the lineup, because usually the lineups don't come until after I start my first reads, and so. Lineups come in and you're busily writing stuff down and you're trying to make sure your pronunciations are correct.
Because up until then, it's still a little iffy on what the actual, lineups. I mean, press box sees them, I don't know, 45 minutes before the game, an hour, 30, I'm trying to remember. The public sees them on Twitter about 30 minutes before kickoff. So how early do you know? Probably not
usually,
much more than
when they come out onto the field for warm-ups, that's usually about the time that our media folks are preparing the hard copy of the rosters.
Yeah.
And then I get it shortly after they go in.
So it's pretty last minute when you think about it, though. I would think. So how much exposure and work do you have with Mark Followell and Steve? Are you in the same room as them?
Not in the same room. Okay. We're on the same floor. We're about 2 doors away. Most of my interaction with them is howdies before the game, wishing them a good show, and then occasionally there are some media guides that don't have pronunciations for the opposing team, so I may get with them. But aside from that, they're sort of doing their thing and I'm doing mine.
So it's like we're here at the ballpark, and so we're in, what is this room called?
The control room.
So this is where you do your PA from?
Yes.
The control room. And the press box is on this level, but it's at a different room next door.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a stupid question. You wouldn't be in the same room because y'all aren't going to be live, or you're not going to want to hear each other.
Yeah, I would interfere with his broadcast.
Yeah, because he's not in stadium. You're in stadium. Your mic is going out to the public in that stadium. Their mics are going to a TV feed.
Correct.
So yeah, you wouldn't want to cross over.
Right.
Sorry, I guess that was a stupid question.
No.
I just think, I'm like, where are y'all sitting? I've walked past your guys' booth a ton. I just never place each one of you.
Next time you're there, come on up. I'll give you a tour.
Okay, I'll knock on right as you're doing anthem prep or something, or announcing it. Just kidding. But I bet those guys are so professional that like you said, they want to get all the pronunciation work right with you and make sure that they have their ducks in a row. They're so good. They seem like, from just the little I know both of them, such nice guys and very professional and good at their jobs.
They're awesome. As a matter of fact, I got to know Mark Followell before I kind of knew he was a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, what I knew he was doing broadcasts and whatnot, but I didn't know. I don't follow basketball as well as I probably should, and didn't know that he was
voice of the Mavs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But one of the things I always thought was cool about him is I always knew that he, in one of his past lives, he was one of the first PA announcers for FC Dallas. And so I always looked up to him for that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's probably also why his voice seems so familiar to me also. But I want to talk about baseball too. You mentioned earlier, we were here, so you're doing baseball. It probably is one of those things, oh yeah, you're doing this here. We know these guys, hey, we need this help, back up, and moved into this role. Are you back up here, or are you like their PA?
I'm their PA announcer now.
Lead guy. We started noticing, was it last season? We're in 2022.
July of last year is when I took over.
July of 21?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can't even remember which season it was in. But we're sitting in our seats, and all of a sudden we're like, wait, that's the FC Dallas voice. What's happening? So I'm like, wait, who's that? What's his name? I want to talk to him and all that good stuff. That's how long you've been on my list that I finally found you. But so does it take much adjustment when you go from sport to sport and have to kind of juggle these different sports, or is it you're good at it now and it's?
Yeah, I think early on in my career, just going into something new just almost terrified me, but I sort of thrive on that terror.
Yeah.
But now, with the repetition that I've done, I'm comfortable with it. I know the vibe of whatever I'm doing. What I do here is different from what I do at FC Dallas.
Does it feel different to you, the vibe? Because the ballpark and that crowd there, it is a different personality, right? Each stadium and each sport, even each sport within the stadium, right? Because you're probably, do you feel like you sound different or act different doing PA at Toyota for high school football versus FC Dallas for MLS?
Well, I will tell you that, like, doing high school football, I pull back a little bit because there aren't as many bodies in the stands. It doesn't absorb my voice as much, and so I come off a lot sharper, if you will.
I hear you.
Versus a lot of people in there.
You have to fill it up more.
Yeah, exactly. You have to compete against the crowd almost.
So 18 or so FC Dallas games, but Rough Riders have a ton of games. You're not like, how much do you work? Do you split the season with somebody else equally, or are you here all the time?
I do all of the games here that don't conflict with FC Dallas.
Okay, that's a lot.
That is.
That's a lot of games.
Yeah, and it's a grind.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of one of those things that if you don't have a passion for it, it'll burn you out.
And we'll hear it in your voice, right? If you don't love it. But it's the way that baseball, this league works right now, is the home stands, and then you get that basically same amount of break when they're away, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like every day all the time. It's every day for a week, and then you get a week off from here, basically.
Yeah. Well, for instance, we just got finished with the All-Star break, and then there was a 2-week road trip. So it was nice. A good time off, and I think I did a couple of FC Dallas games during that time.
Yeah, so good. So then that probably helps reduce some of the burnout of all the baseball, because there's a lot of baseball. It's awesome. Okay, well, I love talking to you and kind of just getting a peek behind the scenes of your world, and I just think your view, like literally your view of the stadium and the ballpark and what's going on the field, and your knowledge of the script for the night and just all the cool and the special guests or whatever's happening that night is just fascinating. And I bet you love your job. I hope you love your job.
Oh, I do.
It sounds so cool.
This is a hobby that pays.
Yeah, that's great. And so what did you say at the beginning? You called yourself, when I said, what is a PA responsibility?
Stadium screamer.
Stadium screamer. I love that. Cool. Well,
yeah,
thanks.
It's you get to do primal therapy screaming just all the darn time, and it's way to be healthy, I guess.
I love it.
Keeps me sane.
Stadium screamer. I'm gonna, when I hear your voice, I'm gonna be like, think of that now all the time. I'm writing it down. Cool. Well, thanks for your time. I know you have a game to do here in a little bit.
Yes.
So I appreciate you coming in early and sitting down and giving us your control room for a few minutes
it's an honor and a pleasure
to hear from you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you guys for watching or listening to another episode of Hustle and Pro. Be sure to subscribe so that you can get an alert when the next episode goes live.